Guys, this is going to be a video about various fights that are coming up and the gambling odds, betting lines surrounding them, and my thoughts on those betting lines. So if you're not into your gambling, if you're not into your boxing, this probably isn't going to be the video for you. But something I wanted to discuss, in terms of my philosophy on gambling, the first thing I can say is, if I look at a fight, and I'll use the first fight we're going to discuss in this video, which is Kell Brook versus Kevin Bizier. I don't choose the bet I place based on who's going to win. I know that sounds like a strange thing to say, and obviously probability of victory is certainly something you have to consider, but I don't look at a betting line and think Kell Brook versus Kevin Bizier, Kell Brook should win, let me bet on Kell Brook. What I try and do is work out the percentages, the percentage chances of an upset, the percentage chances of a fighter winning on points or by knockout, and I try and see if there's any discrepancy between the odds, between the percentages that I've worked out that I feel should be the line and what the bookmakers have priced it at. So often what that means is, if I'm looking at a fight and I see it as a 60-40 fight, let's say fighter A, I think 60% chance of winning, and fighter B is a 40% chance of winning. If the odds suggest that it's a 70-30 fight, and I think it's a 60-40 fight, I may well bet on the underdog, fighter B, even if it's a bet that I anticipate may well lose, because I myself have given fighter A a 60% chance of winning. That's the way I like to do it. I like to look at value, I like to look at any discrepancy, and I believe in the long run, looking at discrepancy between what you think should be the odds and what are the odds is the most effective way of gambling on boxing. Now, that often means that you back an outsider who gets horribly knocked out in round one, and that's just part of the gig. That's part of the gig. As I say, I've had some big wins and some big losses gambling and boxing. I had Tony Thompson to beat David Price in both Tony Thompson fights. I think I had Thompson at 14-1 online in the first of those fights. But I've also had very, very bad losses. I bet on Audley Harrison to knock out Deontay Wilder, for example. So, there's highs and lows. But anyway, enough of that. Let me talk about a few of the lines that I'm looking at. Let's start with Kell Brook v Kevin Bizier. Kell Brook 1-25 on. Kevin Bizier 12-1 against. Now, this is a fight where I think an upset is very, very unlikely. And for what it's worth, I actually think the bookmakers have priced this up pretty accurately. I don't think there's a definite play based on those odds. You wouldn't want to be backing Kell Brook at 1-25. You wouldn't want to be putting on £100 on Kell Brook to win £4. By the same token, is 12-1 an adequate price for Kevin Bizier? Possibly not. If Kevin Bizier were to beat Kell Brook, for my money, that's a bit more of a 12-1 upset. Now, for me, that would normally mean this fight is a completely no-bet play. But there was another line that caught my eye on it, actually, which was Kell Brook to win on points. Now, I'm interested. And please leave this in the comment section below. Bearing in mind that Kell Brook is 1-25 on to win this fight, what would you predict would be the price for Brook to win on points? And this is what I want to know. I want to know what your gut instinct is for the price for Brook to win on points, right? I don't want you to look it up, because my gut instinct was out here, actually. So leave your comments below. I'm going to tell you in just a few seconds. I'm interested to see what people pick, because I was actually surprised to read that Kell Brook to win on points is 5-1. I think that is a bit of value, actually. Don't get me wrong, I expect Kell Brook most likely to win by knockout. But Bizier is a tough guy. He's never been stopped before. Admittedly, his level of opposition has been low. Admittedly, he's lost twice to Jojo Dan. And admittedly, I don't give him much, if any, hope of beating Kell Brook. But this bet, he doesn't have to beat Kell Brook. He has to survive 12 rounds. Now, Brook is a big puncher, but guys have gone the distance with Kell Brook before, haven't they? Sean Porter went the distance with Kell Brook. Sean Porter was dropped by Adrian Broner. He wasn't dropped by Kell Brook. Carson Jones went the distance with Kell Brook. You know, Brook's a big puncher. He knocked out Gavin, he knocked out Jojo Dan, he knocked out Sinchenko. The most likely option is this will be too big a step up in class for Kevin Bizier, and Kell Brook will be able to knock him out. But I think Brook to win on points is a bit of value at 5-1. I'd be pricing it more at sort of 3-1, 7-2, personally. And I think that 5-1 for a small stakes bet represents a little bit of value. As I say, this is one of the bets I was talking about at the start, where I'm placing a bet like this, knowing that in full likelihood I'm going to lose my money, because I view it as a 3-1 outsider. So I still view it as only a 25% chance of happening. But at 5-1, you're getting that incentivisation to go and have a little bit of a play. And you know, if this turns out to be a bit of a scrappy fight, if Bizier shows a bit of toughness and is able to go 12, then totally fair enough. Totally fair enough. And I think 5-1 is enough reward to have a small play there. So let me know your thoughts with that. That 5-1 is the top price available with Sky Bet, by the way. Okay, moving on to another fight. Eubank versus Blackwell. Now, another fight here where if I look at the immediate prices, I don't see an instant line of attack. Eubank is a 1-6 favourite. Blackwell is a 5-1 favourite. Sorry, 5-1 outsider. Again, I think the bookmakers have priced that about right. You know, that reflects the chance I give Nick Blackwell to win this fight. You know, I think he's about a 5-1 shot. Blackwell's a very, very good fighter, but for me, he doesn't have the offensive capability. He's not offensively skilled enough to beat Eubank Jnr. His work isn't eye-catching enough to outpoint Jnr for me. He doesn't carry the power to knock Jnr out. I don't see Blackwell as having a real chance of winning this fight. I think 5-1 is the right price for him. However, again, and taking a very similar tactic to the Brook versus Bizier fight, I was very surprised to hear that you could get 3-1 on Eubank Jnr to win this fight by points. Yeah, I think Eubank Jnr's power is very overrated. Very overrated. I really do. He is not a one-punch knockout artist. If he's fighting an immobile fighter, he's someone who can set his feet and let go punch after punch after punch and wear people down and land hooks and uppercuts and body punches, and he can break someone down after that. But, you know, again, he's not a staggering one-punch knockout artist, is he? I mean, look at the punches Spike took without going down. Look at the punches Billy Joe took without going down. Look at the punches Chudinov took without going down. You know, and let me say, I believe Blackwell, even though I don't think he's got the offense to beat Eubank Jnr, Blackwell is a much more sophisticated boxer than Spike O'Sullivan. He's a more sophisticated mover than Spike O'Sullivan. He's extremely fit, he's very tough and very well conditioned. Blackwell is not someone who's easy to knock out. He's not someone who's easy to stop whatsoever. Again, I can see why Eubank winning by knockout should be the favourite here, but for me this is real tight. And I think Eubank to win on points should be no more than a 2-1 shot. I really do. And yet you're getting 3-1 available here. Again, look, Eubank Jnr is improving. He's extremely offensively minded. But I just see 3-1 as a huge undervaluing of Nick Blackwell's toughness, movement, and the fact that Nick Blackwell is a more sophisticated boxer than Spike. I could see Blackwell absorbing less, moving better, being more defensively astute than Spike, and Blackwell's real tough. You know, it doesn't surprise me whatsoever if Eubank has a tough night here and is made to look inaccurate, etc. And I think 3-1 on Eubank to win on points is a very good bet. Very good bet. I see that as a 2-1 shot. I really do. I think there's a large gap there, and that 3-1 is again available with Sky Bet, who are top price on that. So let me know your thoughts on that line. Moving down. Christopher Abrase versus Rocky Fielding. Rocky Fielding 1-5 on. Christopher Abrase 4-1. Now, that's one I'm more on the fence on here. I need to have a bit more of an in-depth think about this. My initial instinct is the 4-1 on Abrase is high. I appreciate that Abrase is at the stage where he's travelling to England to be brought in as an opponent. He was an opponent for Groves. He was an opponent for Callum Smith. He doesn't carry too much power. But Abrase is exceptionally tough and exceptionally awkward, and he is the kind of fighter who can steal rounds off an opponent. You know, Rocky Fielding is coming off a big knockout loss. You know, a big knockout loss, first defeat of his career. Have to see how he returns from that fight. But I must admit, the initial instinct that Abrase at 4-1 strikes me as a good bet. That 4-1 is available with Ladbrokes. As I said, I wouldn't want to necessarily recommend that now because I feel I need to watch a bit more of Brasse and have a bit of a think about that. But again, let me know your thoughts on that. I think 4-1 for Christopher Brasse to beat Rocky Fielding is a bit generous from Ladbrokes there. I'd have it slightly tighter in my head. Moving on, we'll talk about Arthur Abraham versus Ramirez. Now, I was staggered to understand in this fight that Ramirez was an 8-13 favourite, and you can actually get 13-8 with Arthur Abraham, with Ladbrokes on Arthur Abraham to win this fight. Now, I appreciate Abraham is viewed as a guy who is a beatable champion, who gets hometown decisions when fighting in Germany, and this is going to be a bit different. But let me say, Arthur Abraham is a guy who has perfected his style, and he, despite never looking totally dominant, always does enough. Highly experienced, fought some of the biggest names in the sport, been there, done that, got a t-shirt, years and years and years of top-class fights on his resume. And often you get the impression that Abraham's performance depends on how motivated he's been, and he hasn't necessarily looked the most motivated against Paul Smith or Martin Murray, etc. But against Ramirez, who everyone's making out to be a big favourite, I view Arthur Abraham as a favourite to win this fight. I was actually surprised to hear he was an underdog, and I think 13-8 is superb value. This one is not a complicated play. It's simply Arthur Abraham to win, 13-8, you know. I think he should be odds on. I think he should be 10-11, 5-6, something of that nature, not 13-8. I appreciate Ramirez looks good, but who's Ramirez beaten? You know, he's unproven, especially at this level. This is a major step up against a tricky, experienced customer who's super strong defensively, and you know, has some of the most advanced veteran tactics you'll see in a fight. So those are 4 fights just broken down. Brook versus Bizier. I'm half tempted with Brook points at 5-1. Rabrasse versus Rocky. I'm half tempted at Rabrasse to win at 4-1. And the 2 plays that I really like, Eubank versus Blackwell. Eubank to win at 3-1. Eubank to win on points at 3-1. I think that's an excellent bet. I think that's a real clear, excellent bet. Eubank to win at points 3-1. And Abraham to beat Ramirez 13-8 with Ladbrokes. I think that's an excellent play. Yeah, all 4 of those bets I think are decent value plays, but Abraham to beat Ramirez, Eubank to outpoint Blackwell, I think they're truly exceptional value. I'm going to do a part 2 of this video. I'm running out of time here, sadly, but I'm going to do a part 2. I want to discuss Joshua versus Martin and the odds there. I want to discuss Errol Spence versus Chris Algieri, and I want to discuss Manny Pacquiao versus Tim Bradley. So I think there's some real value available in all 3 of those fights. So stay tuned, hit the subscribe button if you're new to the channel. I wouldn't want you to miss out on part 2, and I want to discuss those fights. But in the meantime, let me know your thoughts. Let me know your thoughts on those 4 bets. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? What do you make of those odds? Thanks for watching. If you like these videos, hit the thumbs up. As I say, do subscribe to the channel. Thanks a lot, guys.